You know, usually when we talk about a medical diagnosis, there's this expectation of like precision.
Oh, absolutely. It's very binary.
Right, like engineering or something, you break your arm, you go in, the x-ray shows that jagged white line, and the doctor just points at it and says, there it is, problem identified.
Yeah, broken or not broken, it's clean. And honestly, it's weirdly comforting because it's just entirely visible. We really like our problems to be neatly categorized so we can fix them.
Exactly. But then you step into the world of neurodevelopment or trauma or just deep psychological burnout, and that x-ray machine is completely useless.
Completely.
We're suddenly looking at a diagnostic landscape that is incredibly murky. We're looking for fractures in a person's spirit, in their psyche, and those just do not show up on a stand.
They don't, and that invisibility makes it so much harder to treat.
Which brings us to what we're doing today. Welcome to today's deep dive. We are looking at a single, incredibly hypnotic source text and narrative story about a man named Elias.
It's a fascinating piece of writing.
It really is, because it asks this terrifying question. What if the only way to heal that invisible fracture is to do the one thing that modern society strictly forbids, which is to completely, absolutely stop moving?
And our mission today is to unpack how it explores that question. Because it operates on two very different levels.
Right, the surface versus the subtext.
Exactly. On the surface, the source material we have today is a sleep story. It's a narrative designed to just calm the nervous system. But underneath that, it is this surgical deconstruction of modern anxiety.
It really pulls no punches.
No, it uses this protagonist, Elias, as a proxy to analyze your own nervous system, to look at your own fears of slowing down.
Right, because there's this core paradox right at the beginning that just completely hooked me. The premise is that to truly remember who we are, we first have to forget the urge to keep moving.
Which is so counterintuitive to how we live.
Totally. And if you are listening to this right now, like whether you're commuting or folding laundry or just sitting at your desk, I want you to think about your own endless movement.
The packed schedules, the endless scrolling.
Yeah, the constant consumption of information, rushing from one obligation to the next. What are you actually running from?
That right there is the essential diagnostic question. Because we tend to view movement as inherently positive.
Oh, for sure. Productivity is king.
Right. Productivity, travel, progression, these things are culturally rewarded. We get praised for them. But this narrative suggests that our movement is not always purposeful. Very often, it is a flight response that's just masquerading as ambition.
Let's look at how the story actually introduces Elias, because it's so telling. It doesn't give us his age, it doesn't give us his profession.
Right, none of those typical identifiers.
It just gives us his condition. It describes him as a traveler who wasn't necessarily old, but he was tired.
Tired in a very specific way.
Yes, it makes a very careful distinction here. This isn't the physical tiredness you get after a long run, where your muscles are full of lactic acid and you just need a nap.
Which is an easy fix, relatively speaking.
Right. It describes a deeper kind of tired, the kind that quietly gathers inside a person from carrying too many thoughts for too many years.
And that description is hitting on a very specific biological reality. It's not just poetic.
It's clinical, right?
It is. We actually have a clinical term for that deeper kind of tired. It's called allostatic load.
Allostatic load, which is basically the wear and tear on the body from chronic stress, like when an engine is just constantly revving.
That's exactly it. The human body is beautifully designed to handle acute stress. It's an evolutionary marvel.
Right. The tiger jumps out of the bushes.
Yes. You encounter a threat, your sympathetic nervous system kicks in, cortisol and adrenaline just flood your system, you fight or you run, you deal with the threat, and then, and this is the crucial part, you recover.
The system resets.
Exactly. The system resets. That's a good night's sleep. But when you are carrying unresolved emotional weight or hypervigilance, or just the sheer cognitive overload of modern existence.
Which is pretty much everyone listening right now.
Right, unfortunately. When that happens, your stress response system never actually turns off. It just hums in the background.
Right.
It's constantly dripping low levels of stress hormones into your bloodstream.
So that deeper kind of tired.
It's the exhaustion of a nervous system that has been stuck in a low-grade fight-or-flight mode for decades.
Man, the analogy I kept coming back to while reading about Elias's exhaustion is a smartphone.
Oh, that's a good one.
Think about a phone that has like 75 different apps open in the background. You're not actively looking at them.
Right, they're just hidden back there.
Yeah, you might not have opened the map app or the email app in days. But they are still drawing data, they are constantly refreshing, pinging cell towers, and they are draining the battery all the way down to 0.
And you don't even see it happening.
Exactly. The worst part is, you look at your home screen and everything looks perfectly normal. You don't even realize why your battery is dying so fast because the surface looks totally fine.
And when that battery hits 1%, what happens? The phone starts acting erratic.
It lags, it gets super hot.
It randomly shuts down. That is Elias. Every place he has been, every person he has loved and left, every unresolved conflict, these are all open tabs in his psyche.
Because he never stopped to close them.
Right, he never stopped to process the endings, to close the apps. So they're all still running. The text says he's carrying them. That implies a static dead weight. It's not active processing. It's hoarding emotional data.
We get this sort of resume of his life. It says he's crossed valleys, he's walked beside rivers, he's seen crowded cities glowing beneath electric lights.
A very romanticized view of traveling at first glance.
Right. He stood on empty hills with ancient winds. He met people, he laughed, he lost, he loved. But the defining characteristic of his entire life is summed up in 2 words: always moving.
Which perfectly illustrates a specific psychological defense mechanism. Movement for Elias is essentially a shield. It's a shield against vulnerability.
Because if you stay in one place for too long, you start to put down roots.
And roots can be pulled up.
Ooh. Yeah.
Think about the psychological risk of staying. You form attachments. You invest your identity into a community, into a house, into a relationship. And the brutal reality of human existence is that anything you attach yourself to can be lost.
It can break, it can leave, it can die.
Exactly. By always moving, Elias is attempting to outrun grief. He thinks he is experiencing the breadth of the world, right? Seeing all these cities and rivers.
But he's actually just skimming the surface.
He is keeping the world at a safe, superficial distance. If he never roots, he can never be uprooted. It's a preemptive strike against pain.
But here's where it gets really dark, and this is something I was wrestling with while reading it. If your entire life strategy is preemptively leaving before you can be left, isn't that just a form of self-erasure?
How do you mean?
Like, if you never let yourself become part of the fabric of a place, do you even exist there? Are you a person, or are you just a ghost haunting your own timeline?
That is such a profound way to look at it, and it goes straight to the heart of how human identity is formed. We don't develop an identity in a vacuum. Identity is largely formed through our reflections in other people and our environment. We know who we are by how we impact our surroundings and how our surroundings hold us.
So if you're always leaving,
if you are constantly changing the mirror, moving to a new city, finding a new social circle, starting a new chapter, you never get a steady look at who you actually are. Constant movement is a brilliant subconscious strategy to avoid confronting the self.
because you're too busy packing bags.
Yes. If you are always focused on the horizon, navigating the next immediate challenge of travel, you never have to sit quietly and just look at your own hands.
Which means the movement isn't a journey at all, it's an evasion.
A lifelong evasion.
But you can't evade forever, right? I mean, eventually the phone battery dies, the story doesn't let him keep running. We hit this moment where, after years of traveling, Elias finds himself standing at the edge of a quiet village beneath a darkening sky.
And there's a detail here that is so striking about how he arrives.
Right. He had no plan, no map. He had simply followed an old mountain road, and when the road ended, the village was there.
Notice the shift in the environment there. Earlier, we heard about crowded cities glowing beneath electric lights.
Yeah, lots of noise and energy.
An electric light is highly symbolic here. It represents artificiality. It's the refusal to let the day end. It's that 247 hyper-productivity of the modern world.
An environment that demands constant output.
Exactly. But here, in this new village, the road physically ends. The momentum is abruptly, undeniably halted.
The sensory details of this place, called Moonrest, by the way, are stunning, and they contrast so sharply with those electric cities.
It's a complete sensory shift.
It really is. We get warm golden light in the windows, thin trails of smoke rising from chimneys, a river moving gently over smooth stones, and beyond all of it, this vast, dark pine forest.
It's very vivid.
It feels incredibly deliberate, almost like a guided meditation is taking over the story.
That's because it essentially is. What the narrative is doing here is a technique called sensory grounding.
Like what they use for panic attacks.
Yes, exactly. When someone is caught in an anxiety spiral or an emotional flashback, therapists often use grounding techniques, like naming 5 things you can see, 4 you can touch, 3 you can hear.
Right, to snap you back to reality.
It forces the prefrontal cortex to come back online. It brings the nervous system out of that fight-or-flight hum we talked about by providing these specific, natural, safe sensory inputs, the golden light, the smooth stones, the smoke. The narrative is physically lowering the reader's heart rate through Elias's experience.
Wow. So as he walks into the village inn, the grounding just continues. There's a wooden sign with a silver moon and pine trees. The place smells of cedar wood and warm bread.
Very primal, comforting smells.
And there's a wooden clock on the wall. The narrative actually writes out the sound, like literally writes tick-tock, tick-tock, tick-tock. And it notes that for Elias, the sound was strangely comforting.
Which is an interesting reaction.
That's what I thought, because if you think about a busy, stressed-out person in the modern world, a ticking clock is usually a nightmare.
Oh, absolutely.
It's the sound of a deadline. It's the sound of time running out. Why is it suddenly a source of comfort for him here?
Well, think about time in a crowded city. Time is a commodity there. It's something you spend or you save or you waste. It is inherently frantic and scarce.
You never have enough of it.
Never. But a mechanical clock in a quiet inn represents time that simply exists, objectively and unhurriedly. The rhythm of the entire village is different. Later in the text, it's described as having a gentle rhythm, like breathing.
So it's not a countdown.
No, the ticking isn't a countdown to a deadline, it's a heartbeat. For a nervous system that has been in overdrive, unpredictability is the ultimate enemy. The steady, unchangeable tick-tock provides a predictable, reliable anchor. And to a traumatized system, predictability equals safety.
Okay, that makes so much sense. So he walks in and encounters the innkeeper. She is this elderly woman sitting by the fire, and he doesn't even ask for a room.
He doesn't have to.
Right. She just looks at him, sees his absolute exhaustion, and hands him a key. When he asks how she knew he needed one, she just says, everyone who comes here needs one.
She functions perfectly as a threshold guardian.
Like in mythology.
Exactly, it's a very common archetype.
Yeah.
But instead of challenging him with a riddle or a trial of strength like a dragon or a sphinx might, she challenges him with radical hospitality.
Oh, I like that phrase. Radical hospitality.
She validates his exhaustion immediately without requiring him to explain himself or justify why he's so tired.
Which is all he really wanted, probably. So that night, he finally sleeps, and for the first time in years, he doesn't dream of roads or distant cities or packing bags.
The movement stops even in his subconscious.
Yeah, he dreams of the forest, he dreams of mist, a moon so close he can almost touch it, and a voice that sounds like wind and water saying, "You may rest now."
This is a critical pivot in his psychological state.
How's it?
When you are operating in chronic survival mode, your subconscious uses dreams to process the anxieties of your waking life. Dreaming of roads meant his brain was still trying to solve the problem of escaping, even while he was unconscious.
So running in his sleep.
Right. But dreaming of the forest and hearing an explicit, authoritative permission to rest, that indicates that his subconscious is finally acknowledging the safety of his environment. The armor of constant motion is finally cracking.
I want to pause on Moonrest itself for a second, though. I mean, is this meant to be a literal town with GPS coordinates?
It's an interesting question.
Because, let's be real, it's incredibly convenient that the road just happens to end at a cozy inn smelling of fresh bread exactly when he is too spiritually bankrupt to take another single step.
A little too perfect, you mean?
Yeah. Is this a physical place, or does the text present it as a psychological threshold?
The narrative absolutely treats it as a liminal space. In literature and in psychology, liminal spaces are thresholds. They are the in-between areas where transformation actually occurs.
So not a spot on a map.
I'd say think of it less as a geographical location and more as the moment a person hits absolute rock bottom in their burnout. The road doesn't literally disappear. Elias's capacity to walk it completely depletes. Moonrest is the psychological sanctuary that manifests when the ego finally breaks and just says, "I surrender. I cannot do this anymore."
Wow. And that surrender is so palpable the next day. He's walking around the village and he notices that no one in Moonrest is rushing. No one seems desperate to arrive somewhere else.
That's a completely different pace of life.
But that evening, he talks to the innkeeper again. She somehow knows he dreamed of the forest, and she gives him this sort of cryptic warning.
The threshold guardian returns.
Exactly. She says that during the day, the forest is only a forest, but at night, it remembers. And what you dream depends on what you have forgotten.
She's essentially setting the conditions for exposure therapy here.
Oh, interesting. How?
She is telling him that the forest will act as a mirror. During the day, our brains are flooded with visual stimuli and distractions. A forest is just trees. A mountain is just a mountain.
You're busy looking at the physical stuff.
Right. But in the sensory deprivation of the night, when the external noise is turned way down, your internal landscape gets projected outward. The forest remembers, because the darkness removes the distractions that allow you to suppress your own memories.
Which means he can't just stay in the cozy inn forever eating warm bread. He has to actually go out there.
The healing requires work.
The physical reality of the full moon the next night literally pulls him out of the village and into the trees. He has to confront what he's buried.
And this is huge, because up until this point, Elias has been entirely passive in his healing.
Oh, that's true.
The village just happened to him. The sleep happened to him. The innkeeper gave him the key without him asking. Stepping into the dark forest is his first active choice to face his internal wilderness. It requires immense courage.
The sensory shift as he leaves the village is immediate. There's no path, but he somehow knows the way. It's cold earth underfoot, the smell of pine needles, silver fog, and a single owl call.
Grounding again.
Yeah, and there's this beautiful observation in the text. It says the farther he went, the quieter he became. His thoughts slowed down, his shoulders relaxed. For the first time in years, he wasn't thinking about tomorrow or yesterday. He was simply walking.
Notice how the mechanics of his walking have completely changed here.
What do you mean?
Before, walking was a means of escape. It was a frantic drive toward the horizon. Now, because there is no path and no destination, the walking becomes a meditation.
Because he's not trying to get anywhere.
Exactly. By stripping away the social expectations of the village and the visual clutter of the modern world, the forest forces his brain into the present tense. He is experiencing spontaneous mindfulness.
So he eventually reaches a clearing, and there's this single massive ancient pine tree. He walks up to it, and he places his hand flat against the bark. It's described as cold, rough, and alive.
A very tactile moment.
And that single point of physical contact, that grounding touch, unlocks a memory he hasn't accessed in decades.
The connection between tactile sensation and memory retrieval is incredibly potent. The hippocampus, which is the brain's memory center, is deeply wired into our sensory processing networks.
So feeling the tree literally triggers the memory.
Yes. Touching the rough, living bark of the tree bridges the gap between his physical environment and his suppressed history.
And the memory is of a warm kitchen and his grandmother. She was the one who originally told him the myth about the moon remembering people. But she also gave him a warning when he was just a child.
A very prophetic warning.
She said, "One day you will become busy, you will travel, and you may forget how to be still."
And how does he react to that as a child?
Young Elias had just laughed and promised he wouldn't. And she smiled and said, "Everyone says that."
It's the universal tragedy of human development, really.
Is it?
Well, we were all born knowing how to be still. If you watch a toddler observing a bug on the sidewalk, they are perfectly present. They aren't worrying about the future or analyzing the past.
They're just totally absorbed in the bug.
Right. But socialization, modern education, the demands of a capitalist society, they systematically train that stillness out of us. We are conditioned to believe that our value is inextricably linked to our production and our movement.
If you aren't doing something, you're wasting time.
Exactly. The grandmother represents an ancestral wisdom that recognizes the extreme danger of that modern conditioning.
And as he's standing there, under the tree, the memory of her asking, "Why did you stop dreaming?" just sort of echoes around him. And this is the moment Elias finally truly realizes why he spent his life running.
The breakthrough moment.
It spells it out with devastating clarity. He had been afraid of losing people, afraid of staying somewhere too long, afraid of becoming attached, afraid of waking up one morning and discovering that everything he loved had disappeared.
So he chose movement.
Yes, he genuinely believed that if he kept walking, nothing could be taken from him.
We touched on this a bit earlier, but here, the narrative explicitly diagnoses him with anticipatory grief.
Anticipatory grief.
Yes, it is the profound fear of future loss. And it can be so overwhelming that a person will literally sabotage their present happiness just to gain a sense of control over the inevitable pain.
So he ruins it before it can be ruined for him.
Precisely. He is so terrified of being abandoned or experiencing loss that he preemptively abandons every situation and every person.
But the tragic irony, which hits him right there in the clearing, is that his defense mechanism actually caused the exact outcome he was terrified of.
A self-fulfilling prophecy.
By avoiding the pain of loss, he guaranteed that he lost everything anyway. There's this brutal line in the text: when you keep walking forever, you eventually leave everything behind, even yourself.
That is the ultimate cost of chronic emotional avoidance. When you sever your connections to the world to protect yourself, you end up severing your connection to your own humanity.
It's just devastating, even yourself. And what happens next is arguably the most important moment in the entire narrative. He looks down at his tired hands, and he finally feels sad.
But a very specific kind of sad.
Right, and makes a careful distinction. It says, not a sharp sadness, not a painful sadness, just the gentle sadness, the kind that comes when you finally stop running. He doesn't try to fight it. He doesn't try to rationalize it or explain it away. He just lets it pass through him.
This is what successful emotional regulation looks like. For his entire adult life, Elias has utilized emotional suppression and avoidance. But when you avoid an emotion, it doesn't just evaporate.
It has to go somewhere.
It becomes trapped in the nervous system, contributing to that heavy allostatic load we discussed. By sitting still and allowing the sadness to simply exist without judgment.
Without running to the next town to distract himself.
Right, without frantically trying to fix it. He is finally completing the stress cycle. The emotion reaches its peak, and because he doesn't resist it, it naturally metabolizes and fades.
I kept trying to visualize what that feels like physically. Imagine you have been wearing a 60-pound backpack for 20 years.
Okay.
You put it on so long ago that you don't even realize you're wearing it anymore. You just assume that life is inherently exhausting, that every step is supposed to be a struggle.
It just becomes your normal.
Then one day, you finally unbuckle it and let it drop to the ground. The feeling you get in that moment isn't necessarily like a sharp, euphoric joy. It's disorienting.
Your body is confused.
Yeah, your shoulders feel weird, your center of gravity shifts. You might even stumble because you're so used to overcompensating for the weight. That gentle sadness Elias feels isn't a fresh wound. It's the bewildering, overwhelming relief of gravity returning to normal. It's the sensation of finally taking the backpack off.
I love that analogy. And because his psychological muscles remember the strain, the body doesn't quite know how to act without the backpack at first. There is a mourning process for the years spent carrying that weight unnecessarily.
For the wasted effort.
Exactly. But the narrative is very clear. This sadness is not a defeat, it is the victory. The exact moment he allows himself to feel the grief is the moment his compulsion to run evaporates.
Right, and because he finally processes this grief, he empties out that internal space. He puts down the backpack, which means for the first time, his hands are empty.
He has capacity again.
Yes, he is suddenly capable of actually appreciating the present moment. Nature abhors a vacuum, so once the avoidance is gone, something new rushes in.
And what rushes in is the capacity for radical acceptance.
He walks a little deeper into the forest, and he finds an old, worn wooden bench by a stream. He sits down, and across the water he sees fireflies.
A very peaceful image.
They are described as tiny stars that had fallen from the sky. And unlike the old Elias, who might have tried to, catch them or study them or move past them to find a better view, he just watches.
It just lets them be.
He feels something completely alien to him, absolute contentment. The text says nothing was missing, nothing needed to be added, the night was enough, the trees were enough, the moon was enough, and he was enough.
That is the complete antithesis of the deficit model that drives modern society.
The deficit model.
Yes, we are constantly messaged that we are lacking. That we need the next promotion, the next purchase, the next wellness trend, or the next trip to be enough.
We're always one step away from being happy.
Right. But Elias has completely stepped outside of that paradigm here. He's experiencing intrinsic value, entirely divorced from any action, achievement, or forward momentum.
And sitting there, he starts to redefine what memory actually is. He thinks about why his grandmother said the moon remembers. He realizes perhaps it remembered because people left pieces of themselves behind. A laugh, a promise, a dream, a moment of kindness.
It's beautiful.
The forest isn't tracking his resume or his mileage. It's holding on to his humanity.
And look at the specific memories that begin to surface for him. Once the noise of his anxiety clears, he doesn't remember the grand sweeping vistas or the impressive cities he visited.
The things you'd think a traveler would brag about.
Exactly. Instead, he remembers the first time he saw snow. He remembers the smell of rain. He remembers his mother's voice. He is reconnecting with his core, authentic self. the unarmored self that existed before the trauma of anticipatory grief took over.
He climbs a small hill, looks up at the millions of stars, and has this profound epiphany about them. He realizes the stars aren't rushing, they aren't competing to be brighter than one another, they simply exist.
They just are.
And that realization triggers his ultimate understanding of belonging. He finally gets that belonging isn't a physical place on a map. You can't navigate to it. Belonging is a feeling. The feeling of being able to stop, the feeling of being able to breathe, the feeling of being accepted exactly as you are.
If we expand that to a sociological level, it's incredibly relevant. We're dealing with a profoundly hypermobile species today. People constantly relocate for work, they distance themselves from their communities, they live these transient digital lives.
Constantly on the move, even virtually.
And as a result, there is an epidemic of loneliness, a deep, aching lack of belonging. The insight here is radical. You cannot find belonging by searching the globe or optimizing your environment.
You can't pack it in a suitcase.
No. Belonging is an internal state of nervous system regulation. You belong to the present moment. When you are fully present, you belong exactly where you are.
The next morning, the sun is rising and he returns to the village. The innkeeper is waiting by the fire and she looks at him and says, "You found it, whatever you had forgotten."
She knew.
And Elias gives this beautiful, simple reply. He says, "I think I forgot how to stay." And for the first time in his life, he chooses not to pack his bags. He chooses to remain in moonrest.
And what he chooses to do with his time in moonrest is highly significant. He doesn't launch some grand project.
Right, he doesn't become the mayor.
No, he repairs fences, he carries wood, he listens to the villagers' stories, he immerses himself in the mundane, repetitive, ordinary tasks of community life.
The narrative actually points this out as the central thematic pivot of his life. It says, he discovered that life was not made only of great journeys, it was also made of small moments. But perhaps the ordinary moments were the ones that mattered most, because they were the moments that stayed.
It is a total inversion of his previous worldview. Before, he chased the extraordinary but felt chronically empty. Now he embraces the ordinary and feels completely full.
It's quite the paradigm shift.
It redefines what true rest is. Rest isn't just about sleeping 8 hours a night. True, restorative rest is the absence of the desire to be somewhere else.
Okay, but this raises a massive practical question. This is a beautiful fable, but how do we actually apply this moonrest philosophy in our loud, chaotic, modern lives?
Right, the real-world application.
Because the reality is you and I, and the person listening to this right now, we don't have an ancient, magical pine forest to retreat to when we're burnt out.
No, we don't.
We have mortgages to pay, we have an inbox overflowing with emails, we have kids who need to be picked up from school. How do we capture that feeling of being allowed to stop when the world is just constantly screaming at us to keep going?
That is the primary challenge of translating psychological insight into daily practice. We cannot all relocate to a mythical village, but we can build micro moonrests into the architecture of our day.
Micro moonrests, I like that.
It requires a conscious rebellion against the urge to optimize every second. It's about cultivating the capacity to be entirely present with the ordinary. Let me give you an example. When you are drinking a cup of coffee in the morning, are you actually tasting the coffee or are you mentally composing an email to your boss?
Oh, definitely the email. Usually a text message and a grocery list too.
Right. If you are composing the email, you are running. Your physical body is in the kitchen, but your nervous system is at the office. If you choose to just taste the coffee, you are staying. You are in moonrest.
So it's about, like, ruthless single tasking, giving yourself permission to just do the one thing you were doing without feeling incredibly guilty that you aren't doing 3 other things simultaneously.
Precisely. It's sitting on a park bench, leaving your phone in your pocket, watching a bird, and deciding that for those 3 minutes, you do not need to be anywhere else and you do not need to solve anything.
Just exist.
Sounds simple, but for a brain addicted to stress, it is incredibly difficult.
It's agonizing at first. Your brain is screaming, check your notifications, be productive, you're wasting time. But Elias masters it. This contentment, this ability to stay in the micro moonrests becomes his permanent state.
We see the long-term effects of this.
We do. We see this play out over decades. The narrative speeds up time. Elias grows old, his hair turns silver, his steps slow down. But there's a crucial distinction made here.
What does it say?
It says, but he was no longer tired in the way he had once been. He had learned how to rest, he had learned how to stay, he had learned that a person could carry sadness without being broken by it.
That distinction is vital for a realistic understanding of healing. The narrative isn't selling some toxic positivity fantasy where sadness is permanently eradicated and physical aging just stops.
He's not immortal.
No, his steps still slow down.
Yeah.
His physical body is failing. He still carries sadness. But the deeper kind of tired, that crushing allostatic load, is gone.
Because he put the backpack down.
Exactly. Because he is no longer fighting reality. He isn't running from his own mortality or suppressing his grief. By accepting them, he carries them gracefully, and they no longer exhaust him.
We jump to a winter night, many years later. There's snow falling, thin ice forming on the river, a warm fire in the house he built himself. The imagery is so stark, cold on the outside, but so warm on the inside.
It's very peaceful.
He realizes his journey is ending, but he is completely unafraid. He realizes that all along, across all those valleys and crowded cities, he had simply needed to come home to himself.
A beautiful realization.
He falls asleep, and the text is very gentle here, framing it as both sleep and passing away, dreaming of his grandmother at the ancient pine tree. She asks if he is tired. He says, a little, and she tells him to rest.
The framing of death here is profound.
It's really gentle.
It strips away the cultural narrative of death as a tragedy, or a violent battle lost, or some terrifying unknown. By removing Elias's fear of stillness throughout his decades in Moonrest, the narrative has essentially prepared him for the ultimate stillness.
Death as the final moonrest.
Exactly. Death is framed as a natural, peaceful return to the earth. Returning to the grandmother's fire brings his entire psychological arc full circle. He is back with the source of his early wisdom, but now he actually embodies it.
And there's this beautiful coda at the end of his story. A myth develops in the village. The villagers start saying that on full moon nights, a soft light can be seen deep in the forest. Some say it's a lantern, some say a star, or the moon shining through the trees. They believe it represents the forest remembering Elias.
And pay attention to what the text says is remembered. It explicitly states that the forest doesn't remember your name or your face. It remembers the quietest part of you, the part that existed before the worries, before the responsibilities, before the endless movement.
I just have to pause on how poetic that is. Think about Elias's whole life. He spent the first half of it absolutely terrified of leaving things behind, terrified of being forgotten or abandoned, running himself into the ground just to avoid the pain of it.
His biggest fear.
And by the end, because he finally stopped, because he surrendered to staying, he literally becomes an eternal, comforting memory for an entire village. He becomes the light in the dark for others.
It is the ultimate resolution of his core wound. He tried to control his legacy and protect himself through constant movement and isolation, but he only achieved a lasting, meaningful legacy through his peaceful, vulnerable presence.
So, Elias's story is complete at this point. The fable is over. But the source material doesn't end there. It does something fascinating. It shifts from being a narrative story into being a profound, direct psychological tool.
The author drops the third-person distance entirely.
Right.
This is where the structural brilliance of the text reveals itself. It turns its gaze directly onto the reader, onto you. It leverages every ounce of empathy and understanding you've just built for Elias and applies it to your own nervous system.
It speaks directly to you. It uses Elias's journey as a blueprint for your own transition into sleep. It starts giving these gentle, authoritative commands. There's nowhere you need to be. There's nothing you need to solve. Let the forest hold it for you.
It's very direct.
It prompts you with sensory visualizations. It asks you to imagine walking softly on pine needles, feeling the heavy weight of your body sinking into a mattress, letting your thoughts pass by like clouds over the moon or leaves on a stream.
From a clinical perspective, this is an incredibly sophisticated meditative tool. It mirrors the exact process of sensory grounding and exposure therapy that Elias went through. It utilizes repetition, in and out, to rhythmically mirror and induce a slower respiratory rate.
It also personifies nature to stack these permissions. It says the trees say you are safe, the river says you can let go, the moon says you are remembered, and the earth says you may rest. It just keeps layering these permissions. You are allowed to be tired, you are allowed to rest.
Which we desperately need to hear.
But why is that explicit permission so necessary for us? Why can't we just close our eyes and go to sleep?
Because we live in a culture of conditional rest.
Conditional rest.
Yes, we are taught that we must earn our sleep by being sufficiently productive during the day, by crossing everything off the to-do list, by solving all our problems.
But the list never ends.
Exactly. The reality of modern life is that the to-do list is infinite. The inbox never empties. If rest must be earned through completion, we will never, ever truly rest. The text steps in as an external authority to grant unconditional permission.
It gives you a pass.
It is explicitly telling the brain the problems of tomorrow do not belong to tonight. You are allowed to put down the cognitive load without having solved it.
There's a specific line in this section that really stuck with me. It says, "Sleep comes naturally when we stop asking it to come." Why is that? Why is the human brain wired so that the harder we try to sleep, the harder we try to force ourselves to relax, the more impossible it becomes? It feels like a cruel biological joke.
It really does. It is a phenomenon known as sleep effort or paradoxical intention.
Paradoxical intention.
All right. The act of trying to do anything requires the activation of the sympathetic nervous system. That's the system responsible for effort, alertness, vigilance, and problem solving.
The get stuff done system.
Exactly. But sleep is exclusively a function of the parasympathetic nervous system,
Huh.
the rest and digest system. You cannot actively, aggressively problem solve your way into unconsciousness.
But we try.
We do. But the more you monitor yourself, thinking, am I asleep yet? Why aren't I asleep? I only have 5 hours left.
Yeah.
The more you signal to your amygdala that there is a threat in the environment that requires hypervigilance.
So the very act of trying to sleep is literally shouting at your brain, "Stay awake and figure this out. This is an emergency."
Precisely. Sleep is not an achievement. It is a state of surrender. Elias couldn't find peace until he surrendered his frantic movement. A listener cannot find sleep until they surrender the effort of trying to sleep.
So what the text is doing is,
What this text does is brilliantly distract the active, problem-solving brain by giving it peaceful, non-threatening imagery to focus on clouds, streams, fireflies. It occupies the sympathetic nervous system just enough to allow the parasympathetic system to quietly take over in the background.
it tells the listener, you are not lost. You are simply resting. And sometimes resting is part of the journey. That line echoes through the whole text.
It fundamentally reframes stillness. In our culture, stillness is often viewed as a failure of momentum, a sign of laziness or stagnation.
A weakness.
Right. But the text argues that stillness is a necessary, active, and courageous component of the human experience.
Okay, we have journeyed through the crowded, electric cities. We've walked into the dark pine forest. We've sat on the wooden bench, and we've analyzed the deep mechanics of biological surrender. Let's distill what we've actually uncovered in this deep dive.
If we look at the core lessons from Elias's journey and the text's direct meditative application, I think 3 profound pillars emerge.
All right, what's the first one?
First, constant movement and the obsession with productivity are very often trauma responses. They are sophisticated, socially acceptable ways of running away from our own unresolved grief, fear, and need for control.
Second, true belonging is not a physical place you can find on a map, and it's not something you can buy your way into. It is an internal state of stillness. It is the profound, quiet realization that you are enough, exactly where you are, without needing to add or subtract anything from the present moment.
And third, rest is a fundamental human right. It is not a reward to be earned through total exhaustion or the completion of an infinite to-do list. It is a baseline biological and psychological requirement for processing the emotional and cognitive load of simply being alive.
So, to you, the listener, as you go about the rest of your day, or as you prepare to close your eyes tonight, I want to encourage you to find your own moon rest moments.
You don't need a map for them.
Right. They don't require a vacation. They don't require a magical forest. Notice the smell of your coffee. Feel the warmth of the steering wheel in your car. Listen to the sound of rain against a window. Give yourself the explicit, unconditional permission to stop.
Even if it's just for 60 seconds.
Even for 60 seconds. Let the app close in the background. Put the heavy backpack down.
The world will not fall apart if you cease your movement for a moment. In fact, stepping out of the frantic stream of momentum might be the only way you can truly see the world at all.
I want to leave you with one final thought to mull over, building on the profound wisdom of this source. We started this deep dive by talking about how medical diagnoses are clean, like an X-ray showing a broken bone. But psychological healing is murky and hidden.
The invisible fractures.
Exactly. The story of Elias suggests that our dreams, our true, unarmored selves, don't disappear when we get busy. They just wait beneath the noise, in that murky darkness.
Waiting for us to remember them.
What if the very act of finally sitting still, of doing absolutely nothing, an act that our culture constantly screams at us is a complete waste of time, isn't a waste at all? What if sitting still in the dark, where the X-ray can't see, is the only actual way to retrieve the pieces of yourself that you accidentally left behind while rushing through your life?
It's a powerful question.
Think about that the next time you feel the overwhelming urge to run, to check your phone, to fill the silence. Maybe it's time to stay. Imagine a piece of literature where the author's ultimate goal, like their sole metric of success, is that you never actually finish reading it.
Right. It is completely wild to think about.
Yeah, a story engineered from the very first syllable to basically dismantle your attention span and make you lose consciousness before the final page.
It completely upends the traditional rules of writing. I mean, normally an author wants to grip your attention and just refuse to let go.
Oh, for sure. They want you on the edge of your seat.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But here, they are actively trying to negotiate a hostage release with your waking brain.
Which makes today's source material such a brilliant paradox. So, welcome to this deep dive. Today we are examining a complete final script for a sleep story, and it is titled The Lighthouse That Remembered Dreams.
And we really have a great mission for this deep dive.
We do. We aren't just going to recap a bedtime tale for you. We are going to unpack the actual architecture of sleep storytelling.
Yeah, because it is a highly structured thing.
Right. We are going to explore how this specific script uses pacing, deliberate sensory imagery, and some surprisingly heavy emotional themes to biologically and psychologically hack the human mind.
Lulling it right into a state of deep rest. Because honestly, it truly is an architectural feat.
It really is.
Sleep storytelling isn't just, ambient white noise or some plotless drone. It is a highly structured psychological tool that is just cloaked in a narrative.
Yeah, cloaked is the perfect word for it. Every single word is chosen to trigger a specific physiological response. So to understand how that works, I want you to picture the opening scene the script lays out. You are immediately placed in a quiet night. The world has finally become still.
Which is such a powerful starting point.
It is. You are standing beside an ocean. The waves are moving gently beneath the moonlight. The wind is whispering through the grass, and you are walking down a narrow, earthen path toward a dark cliff.
The setting does a ton of heavy lifting before the plot even begins.
Oh, absolutely.
It immediately isolates you. There are no traffic sounds, no crowded rooms, no smartphones pinging, just the natural rhythmic elements of an empty coast.
And standing there on that coast is our protagonist, Clara. She is completely alone. And the script, it doesn't waste time on complex action sequences or intricate backstory at all.
No, it zooms right in.
Yeah, it explicitly focuses on very slow, gentle movements. There is a lighthouse on the cliff, and its golden light is sweeping across the dark sea.
And then there is that repetition.
Yes. The script repeats this phrase once, twice, again, and again. And underlying that sweeping light is the periodic resonant ringing of the lighthouse bell dong.
That sweeping light and that bell, they are basically the foundational pillars of the entire cognitive hack.
Okay, let's unpack this, because when I first read that opening, I just kept visualizing a hypnotist's swinging pendulum.
Oh, that is a great analogy.
Or maybe like a really slow metronome sitting on a piano. The golden light sweeps, the bell rings. Doo. It really feels like the script is actively trying to physically slow down your internal clock by providing these recurring sensory anchors.
What's fascinating here is the clinical psychology behind that exact mechanism. That is what makes this so incredibly effective.
Right, because it's not just pretty words.
Not at all.
Right.
When we try to calm a dysregulated nervous system in a therapeutic setting, we use grounding techniques. Throughout your day, your brain is in a state of hypervigilance.
Constantly on edge.
Yeah, it is tracking a million unpredictable variables, emails, conversations, the car braking suddenly in front of you. That keeps your sympathetic nervous system, your fight or flight response, highly engaged.
So the brain is basically just stuck in high gear.
Precisely. So by introducing this repetitive golden light and the slow, resonant dong of the bell, the story creates a perfectly enclosed, predictable environment.
A safe zone, kind of.
Right. It activates the parasympathetic nervous system, specifically stimulating the vagus nerve. It forces the brain to shift away from the chaotic, unpredictable anxieties of the waking world and synchronize with a simple pattern.
Wow.
You literally cannot maintain a high heart rate or rapid breathing if your brain is fully locked onto the slow, predictable rhythm of those imaginary waves.
It acts as a gentle, rhythmic tether. I love that. It keeps you from floating back up into your own stressful, spiraling thoughts.
Sick.
But, that soothing, rhythmic exterior is essentially just the lobby of this story. Because once Clara steps through the old wooden door of this lighthouse and climbs the endless spiral staircase, the narrative introduces a metaphor that is surprisingly profound.
It definitely takes a darker, a more melancholic turn than you might expect from something that is meant to help you relax.
It really does. I was a bit shocked. Clara reaches the top of the stairs and enters the lantern room. But the walls aren't covered in maps or nautical gear like you would expect. They are lined with hundreds of glowing glass bottles. Blue, green, silver, golden light shining from within them. And she meets the keeper of the lighthouse, this old man with a lantern named Elias.
And when Clara asks what is inside the bottles, Elias tells her they are dreams.
Specifically, the dreams people have forgotten.
And he doesn't shy away from explaining the harsh reality of why those dreams were forgotten either.
Man, that part hit incredibly hard. Elias says people forget their dreams because life becomes loud, they become busy, and they become afraid.
It is so poignant.
It is. And then Clara finds her own bottle, a glowing golden one, and touching it unlocks a deeply repressed memory.
Right, the memory of her grandmother.
Yeah, she is 8 years old, standing on a beach with her grandmother, drawing a lighthouse in the sand. And her grandmother tells her the lighthouse shines for someone who needs to find their way home.
Such a beautiful image.
But then we learn that Clara stopped dreaming, stopped writing, and stopped wondering entirely after her grandmother died. She just became practical, dizzy, and responsible.
She locked that gentle, vulnerable part of herself away in order to survive the acute grief. And then, just the mundane busyness of adulthood.
Okay, but this is where I have to push back a little on the strategy here.
Let's hear it.
A sleep story centered on repressed grief, the death of a beloved grandmother, and the crushing, mundane weight of practical adulthood. Isn't that way too heavy?
It sounds like it would be.
Right. I mean, if you are lying in bed trying to get to sleep, do you really want to be confronting the death of your own childhood wonder?
Well, if we connect this to the bigger picture, on the surface, it seems entirely counterintuitive. Why not just tell a story about a happy bunny in a meadow, right?
Exactly. Give me the happy bunny.
But if we look at the cognitive behavioral principles of sleep anxiety, it actually makes perfect sense. Ignoring daily anxieties or pretending sadness doesn't exist, that rarely works for a racing mind.
Because it just pushes it down.
Right. If you tell an insomniac, don't be stressed, their brain immediately highlights the stress.
The classic don't think of a pink elephant problem. If you try to force yourself not to think about your impending deadline, that deadline is all you can see.
Yes. What this script does is far more sophisticated. It acknowledges the gentle melancholy we all feel late at night.
That quiet 2 a.m. feeling?
Right. When the house is quiet and the distractions of the day are gone, that is when the grief, the regret, and the feeling of missing out on life all creep in.
Yeah, they really do.
The story validates your quiet nighttime anxieties. But it doesn't just leave them hanging out in the open. It safely contains them.
Oh, it puts them in the glass bottle.
Exactly that. The heavy feelings are acknowledged, but they are physically contained within beautiful glowing glass bottles in a safe, magical room guarded by a wise old keeper.
That is so clever.
It takes the abstract terror of existential adult dread and makes it manageable, beautiful, and safe to observe from a distance.
It is a brilliant reframing. It is basically whispering to you, yes, you are sad, you are tired, you have lost things, but look how beautifully we can store that sadness for the night. But merely storing anxiety isn't enough to actually induce sleep. You also have to actively release physical tension. And that brings us to the most crucial mechanism in the script, which is modeled for the listener through a new character named Daniel.
This is a huge shift. This is the turning point where the narrative moves from emotional containment to active physical release.
Yeah, because Clara isn't alone with Elias for long. We hear slow footsteps on the spiral staircase. Step, step, step.
Very methodical.
Right. A man named Daniel appears in the doorway. He is wearing a wet coat, he has a pale face, and these deeply tired eyes. And he is desperate. He wants to steal Clara's golden dream to open what he calls the door to yesterday.
He really represents a person entirely trapped in the sunk cost fallacy of their own past.
He wants one more day with someone he lost, his sister, Anna. He has spent his whole adult life trying to force his way backward to bring her back.
It is heartbreaking.
It is, but Elias gently tells him that he cannot go back. And Clara realizes Daniel doesn't need to steal her dream. He needs to remember his own.
Which is a huge breakthrough for him.
Yeah, and when he finally stops trying to force a solution, a memory returns to him. He remembers Anna laughing, running through a sunny field with a brilliant red kite.
A great visual.
Clara tells him Anna doesn't need him to stay trapped in the past. She tells him he needs to live. Daniel touches a red bottle, briefly sees Anna on the beach, and she echoes that command. She tells him to go live.
The realization is powerful. But the script knows that cognitive realization isn't enough to release deep tension.
Right, knowing you should relax doesn't actually make you relax.
Exactly. So it revisits him a few moments later to show the physical manifestation of letting go.
And this is the sequence that completely blew my mind. Here is where it gets really interesting. Later in the story, Clara visits Daniel again in this sort of in-between dream space.
Right.
He is sitting by an open window, looking much older, and he is physically clutching that red kite from his memory. He remembered Anna, and he got stuck again, just holding onto the memory of her with a white-knuckle grip.
Still trapped.
Yeah. Clara tells him to honor her by living. And Daniel finally opens his hands. He physically lets go of the red kite. He watches it fly out the window up into the sky until it is just a tiny red dot. And only then does his face soften into peace.
It is a vivid visual metaphor for surrender.
It really is. When I was reading this, I couldn't help but compare that emotional release to the physical act of progressive muscle relaxation.
Oh, absolutely.
You know, when you purposefully tense up your shoulders, clench your jaw, make tight fists, and then you intentionally release them, feeling the tension drain out of your muscles.
That is exactly what it is doing.
Daniel has had this death grip on his grief. He is emotionally and physically clenched. Releasing that kite is the narrative equivalent of unclenching your jaw. He unclenches his mind so his body can finally rest.
It is an incredibly potent biological cue embedded right in the middle of a bedtime story. I mean, think about what is keeping someone awake at 2 a.m.
It is Daniel's problem.
Exactly. The listener is gripping tightly to a conversation they had 5 years ago, or a mistake they made at work, or the profound grief of losing someone. They are lying in the dark, physically tense, holding on to their own red kites.
Wow, yeah. We are all just sitting in the dark, holding on to our red kites, refusing to open our hands.
And Elias makes the thematic core of this explicit when Clara asks what the lighthouse really does. He says the lighthouse isn't really about sleeping at all, it is about waking up.
Waking up to life.
Yes. It reminds people to wake up to the life that has been waiting for them all along. By having you watch Daniel let go of his tension, it subliminally grants your own brain permission to put down the heavy baggage of the day.
It totally gives you permission to mentally clock out. But, okay, here is where the script pulls off its wildest maneuver.
It really takes a turn here.
It does. Once Daniel's emotional tension is released, and you are presumably feeling a bit lighter, the story doesn't just neatly wrap up. It doesn't follow a standard 3-act structure to a logical conclusion.
Not at all.
Instead, the mythology of the lighthouse drastically expands. The whole narrative fractures and shifts from a linear, logical progression into something incredibly surreal and disjointed.
The strict boundaries of reality just completely dissolve.
They evaporate. Elias passes his golden lantern to Clara, and she becomes the new keeper. Suddenly, a 10-year-old girl named Lily arrives at the door, mourning her mother.
Out of nowhere.
Right. And through a series of bizarre reveals, we find out Lily is actually Clara's future granddaughter. The script tells us the lighthouse doesn't exist inside normal time at all. It exists somewhere between yesterday and tomorrow.
It abandons the chronological rules of daytime reality entirely.
Then, to save the fading light of the lighthouse, Clara has to visit something called the First Dream behind a dark door, where she finds a young version of Elias. She learns that Elias's own daughter dreamed up the lighthouse to begin with.
It gets so layered.
So layered. The next second, Clara is suddenly transported to a village bookstore called The Dreaming Lantern, run by a woman named Margaret. And Clara realizes she has to sit down and write the very book we are currently experiencing to keep the magic alive.
It is a full-on paradox.
Yeah. And I have to ask about this time loops. Future granddaughters. The creating the creator. Doesn't this kind of complex Inception-style plotting stimulate the brain way too much for a sleep story?
This raises an important question, actually, because if you were fully awake, yes, it would absolutely stimulate you.
Right, I'd be trying to map it all out on a whiteboard.
Exactly. But this points to the neurobiology of how the brain actually transitions into sleep. Think about the hypnagogic state, that liminal space, right on the very edge of falling asleep.
Oh, yeah.
If you've ever paid attention to your thoughts in that moment, you will notice they stop making logical sense.
Oh, definitely. You will be thinking about paying your electric bill, and suddenly you are convinced that a giant tortoise needs to sign the check, and your brain doesn't even question it.
That is dream logic in action. When we are awake, our prefrontal cortex is in charge. It demands linear progression. A causes B, which causes C.
Making sense of the world.
Right. But to enter REM sleep, that logical analytical part of the brain has to power down, handing the reins over to the amygdala and the hippocampus, which process abstract emotions and memories.
Oh, wow.
So by intentionally blurring the edges of reality, by introducing future granddaughters and paradoxical time loops, the script is artificially mimicking the onset of the REM sleep state.
So it is feeding the brain the exact kind of nonsense it expects to see right before it shuts off.
It is forcing a cognitive decoupling. If the story remains entirely logical, your prefrontal cortex stays engaged. It tries to predict the next plot point, solve the mystery, or analyze the character motivation.
It stays awake doing a job.
Exactly. But when time stops making sense, your analytical brain gets overwhelmed. It essentially says, I cannot track this chronological puzzle anymore. I surrender. And that surrender is the physiological prerequisite for falling asleep.
It is like the script is holding your hand and slowly walking you across the border from daytime reality into a dream state, using the plot as a diversion tactic.
That is a great way to describe it.
And this complete dissolution of logic sets up the script's final and arguably most vital trick. The moment where the story literally steps out of the pages and directly into your bedroom.
The breaking of the fourth wall.
Yes. Clara realizes that her childhood dream wasn't to live in isolation in a lighthouse. Her dream was to tell stories that make lonely people feel less alone.
Which is beautiful.
It is. Her golden dreamlight fades into the ocean because she realizes dreams are meant to be shared, not hoarded in glass bottles. And right at that moment of beautiful narrative resolution, the script pivots completely.
It is a massive shift.
It stops telling Clara's story. It abandons the third-person narrative altogether.
It transforms from storytelling to active, direct guidance.
Yeah, the text actually reads, and perhaps one day you may see it too. Perhaps on a quiet night, when the world becomes still, you will close your eyes. You will hear the sound of waves.
It is so direct.
It starts speaking directly to you, the listener. It commands you to let your thoughts become quiet, to listen to the imaginary waves. It feels exactly like the gentle fade out at the end of a really great song.
Oh, I love that comparison.
The realization hits you that the story we just read is the story Clara wrote in that bookstore to help people sleep. The narrator stops being a distant storyteller and suddenly becomes a soothing guide sitting right next to your bed.
The mechanics of that shift in pronouns are just brilliant. Moving from the third-person narrative about Clara and Daniel to the second-person, you, is a profound psychological transfer of energy.
How so?
Well, for 15 minutes, the listener has watched Clara and Daniel find peace, resolve their deep-seated grief, and let go of their physical tension. By suddenly shifting to you, the script takes all of that accumulated peace and effectively transfers it directly onto the listener.
It is like handing the listener the golden lantern.
It is. It says, they found their peace, they let go of their kites, and now it is your turn. It also uses incredibly suggestive clinical language in this final phase.
Like what?
Phrases like, let your thoughts become quiet, or the day slowly drifts away. It is no longer suggesting relaxation through metaphor. It is directly instructing your nervous system to shut down, using the safe, contained environment of the lighthouse as the backdrop.
And it ends by bringing back that recurring, grounding motif from the very beginning. The final bell rings. Dong. The golden light passes over the ocean, the waves become softer, and the guide tells you that your dreams are finally finding their way home.
It is so cohesive.
It is an incredibly hypnotic, sensory-rich package that brings everything full circle.
It really proves that sleep storytelling isn't just about being boring. It is about taking profound human experiences, grief, hope, memory, the feeling of being overwhelmed by life, and using narrative resolution to trigger physical relaxation.
It is functional art.
Exactly. It creates a space where you feel seen, validated, and ultimately safe enough to finally close your eyes.
It gives you a physical place to put your anxieties so you don't have to carry them into your sleep. And that actually brings me to a final thought I want to leave you with.
I'd love to hear it.
Something to mull over the next time you are lying awake in the dark, struggling to shut your brain off. The script suggests that when we forget our dreams, they don't die. They wait for us in this beautiful lighthouse guarded by an old keeper.
Right.
So what if the very act of going to sleep isn't just a biological necessity? What if it isn't just about resting our tired physical bodies, but taking a necessary nightly journey?
A journey to where?
A journey to visit the parts of ourselves, our old hopes and forgotten wonder, that we are simply too busy, too practical, or too afraid to listen to during the loud hours of the day.
That is a fascinating perspective.
Maybe we aren't just turning our brains off. Maybe we are going back to check on the things we have left behind.
A lighthouse waiting just beyond the darkness of the conscious mind.
Exactly. Think about that the next time you close your eyes and let the imaginary waves roll in. What forgotten dream is waiting for you in a glowing glass bottle? Thank you for joining us on this deep dive.
It has been great.
It has been an absolute pleasure unpacking the architecture of sleep storytelling with you. We hope you will join us for our next exploration, where we will dive into another fascinating corner of the things that shape our world.
Until next time.
Until then, just remember, somewhere out there, a golden light is sweeping across the water. Once, twice, again, and again. Sleep well.